I've started recording this intro like 4 or 5 times now, and I cringe really bad every time I introduce myself or start talking in the video, so just thought you should know that. But this is, as you can tell from the title, about my great return to reading. I have been not reading the past 2 months as much as I usually do because I had an exam which I just gave a week ago, and so I was studying round the clock for that. I also work 9 to 5, and my work was pretty full on in December and January, so I basically had no spare time outside of work and studying in which I really did any reading. I think I only read 3 books between December and Jan, and 2 of those books were in like the first week of December, and the 3rd book was read throughout December and Jan, very slowly, very sparingly. I would like start it right before I'd go to sleep, and I think I'd read a page and be like, so we'll talk about those in due course, but I have great plans for coming back to reading. I've already started. It's been really great to have some time off to de-stress before getting back into the swing of busyness again. And yeah, so let's get into it. I'm going to talk about what I've started reading currently, future reading plans, just in terms of my reading style and taste and picks for this year, what I'm thinking I but want to do this year. And also I have some new books that I'm going to show you, and we'll talk about that. So the first thing I started with was a book that I bought recently, and I mentioned in my January TBR, of which I read none of those books, but it's The Course of the Heart by M. John Harrison. I'm a decent amount through. I have like very few pages left. I'm on page 178, and this is a 265 page book. It's interesting. It's meant to be a sci-fi book, and I picked it up because when I read the back of it, it drew a lot of parallels to Piranesi by Susanna Clarke in terms of having an occult background, something about a mystery otherworld, and just in general intrigue throughout the novel and finding things out as slowly being revealed as the novel goes on or the narrative progresses. But it's so different and unique to what I was expecting. It's completely not what I thought the plot was going to be at all. It centers around these 3 students from Cambridge who undergo a secretive ritual one night in the summer of them being students, and it completely alters their life forever. But at no point is that ritual described or mentioned. The time when they're students is also not touched upon, which I had assumed it would be. And I think it's only in the first chapter where they're talked about as students, and our narrator is sort of omniscient. He's never named. We don't really know that much about him. It's all in very vague terms, and he's mostly telling us about the other 2 characters involved in the ritual, who are Lucas and Pam, who later get married, and sort of the effects the ritual and what they've discovered continue to have on them. So this is sci-fi in a way that is also very deeply rooted in history and theology and perhaps even philosophy. I say perhaps for that last one because I feel like I cannot tell until I get to the end of the novel and finish it, because I agree with all the reviews about it that I've read where it's just so hard to explain what's actually going on, and that you didn't really fully understand the novel in the first read through, and you're like, what is happening? And what is happening is this other world, and the ritual that they're involved in introduces them to the other world called the Pleroma. The Pleroma, I wish I had written down what I googled about it, but Harrison has drawn the Pleroma quite literally from this ancient Gnostic theology, religious theology of Gnosticism, which I find quite hard to explain, but think of it as a religious pillar, the way, and the Abrahamic religion, like Abrahamic theology is a pillar. Like you have Judaism, Christianity, and Islam under the pillar of Abrahamic religion, so the same way Gnosticism and Gnostic theology and religions are their own pillar. And I feel like I want to say the ancient Greeks theorized on this, but on the Pleroma, and came up with this concept, but I feel like maybe I'm wrong about that, to just attribute everything to the ancient Greeks, but at the same time, I do feel that is what was mentioned when I googled it. Anyways, this pleroma is what is the other world that they enter into, or like they gain access to in this ritual, and it begins to interfere in their lives over the course of the rest of their life, in ways that really plague them and irritate them and frustrate them, and they're ever changed from this ritual, but we have no idea what exactly happened. I will say you can suspect that the ritual was quite grotesque and bizarre and altering, because another ritual by the guy who led them through this ritual is described, and it's so messed up. It is completely messed up. You don't really understand what the exact purpose is, what the intended effect or result is meant to be, but it's all these weird things being put together and a really weird act going on. So I can only imagine that they went through something really fucked up in a similar manner. And another part of this is the novel's title, The Course of the Heart, is important because Lucas and Pam, the other two characters who end up marrying each other, throughout their marriage they have this sort of self-soothing ritual where Lucas is a writer where they've sort of co-invent this history of a man called Michael Ashman who traveled through Europe and goes through a lot of medieval histories in search of what they call the heart, or the cœur. And they're sort of tracing how this cœur, or the heart, appears and disappears through different family lineages and turning points within medieval European history specifically. At least so far, it's only been European. Through antiquity, through medieval, Middle Ages, and more slowly approaching modern European history as well. So I would say having some working knowledge of European history would also be useful, just to understand, because there are a couple of references here and there, like John Tredescant, who was the royal gardener during the time of Cromwellian England. I knew some of those things, but I think there's more events and figures being touched upon that I don't have a working knowledge or background or history of. So if you're a history buff, especially European medieval history and the like, maybe you would understand a lot more than I am. So anyways, it's tracing that, and I don't really know what else to say about it, because it's not, there is a plot, there is a sort of narrative, you are moving through time, but at the same time I can't really say what is going on because I don't understand what the defined endpoint of this novel would be, and I don't think there is a defined endpoint, hence it being The Course of the Heart. And I think that's the parallel you can draw. So I've spent way more time talking about that than I thought I would. I will say there are also some sexually explicit scenes in here, so if you're not wanting to come across that, do be aware that that happens. I don't want to disparage the other sex, but men do tend to like to write about this in their literary novels in a very vulgar way. Sorry, again, I shouldn't disparage or make generalizations, but it's an observation. And if you're worried about the sci-fi element, it is not like traditional sci-fi at all. We're not touching that much on occultism or even hard sci-fi elements, like space, physics, quantum mechanics, all those things. This is not a part of the novel at all. Like I said, it's a lot about theology and history. There's no even time travel or anything like that. It's really difficult to explain, and I didn't think sci-fi could exist this way, or I hadn't read sci-fi like this before, and it's an experience. I think it's enjoyable, but sometimes I'm confused as to what's going on. That's not necessarily a bad thing. The next book I have is For One More Day by Mitch Albom. This opens with a reporter going to a baseball pitch. Sorry, I had to take a coughing break, but this is a story about a family, and as there is a ghost involved, you might call it a ghost story. but every family is a ghost story. The dead sit at our tables long after they have gone. So, this follows a reporter who arrives at a little league field, and he's just kind of walking around. He spent a majority of his career as a sports writer, and he's talking to a janitor through the chain links at the fence and mentions that he's a writer or a reporter, and he's like, you should interview that guy sitting over there by himself in the bleachers. And the reporter's like, and he was like, yeah, he tried to kill himself. He's like, he used to be a really famous baseball player, or he used to play pro ball. So the reporter goes off and has a conversation with Chick Benito, and basically this is what the story is, the conversation that they have. I've only read that first introduction period, but I found it very compelling, and Mitch Albom does have very compelling stories. If you've read any of his other novels, you understand that. The first one I read was The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, and that's a story that really stuck with me for an age, which is why I've kept this book for so many years despite not reading it. And yeah, I thought this was just going to be a book I'd read quickly and then give away, but I don't think it will be. But again, I haven't read more, so I can't really tell you. The next book I've started is Pride and Prejudice by Austen. I actually find this surprisingly easy to read, which is so strange. A couple of years ago when I bought Mansfield Park, I was like struggling. I feel like I was hitting a wall reading that novel. But this time around, I found Austen's writing quite easy to go through, and I think it's a testament to how forcing yourself through classics over years can improve your comprehension. So if you find it difficult, do not despair, do not disparage, you will get there. Because I used to beat myself up because I found classics quite difficult to engage with for an extended period of time, and often I couldn't always finish them, or I'd abandon them, or I wouldn't fully grasp the concept of what's going on. But your comprehension will improve the more and more you try. I know practice makes perfect is so annoying, but especially if you're someone who reads a lot of lighter writing, just slowly building yourself up will get you there. For example, like this book, even though it's more modern and it's a sci-fi literary fiction is how I'd classify it, it's not the most straightforwardly written book, yet at the same time it is not like classically written, but it's still a challenge for your mind. And the more you challenge your brain with your reading tastes and reading habits and the different tones and styles of writing that you're reading, the easier that different types of books, especially classics, will become for you to read. So I guess that's my unsolicited advice if you wanted it. So that's what's on the agenda. I also I will be reading The Wedding People by Alison Espach. I feel like I got her name wrong, but it's a very, very popular book. It was really popular last year. A lot of people were reading it, and my office book club has picked it for this month, so I will be reading that as well. I don't have a copy of it because I wanted to get it from the library, but there's such a massive wait list, so I'm just gonna read it on ebook. And yeah, so that's what's going. I also have a little bit of a haul. I'm sorry, I had to take another coughing break. My throat gets really dry when I talk for an extended period of time, and since I haven't filmed a video in a while, my throat is struggling. I also feel like when you're talking with your friends, because you're stopping and starting so much, you're not just speaking in one long flow. I don't feel it as much, but when I'm speaking to the camera like this, oh my god. Anyways, nobody wants to hear that. I feel like when people talk like this on videos I'm watching, I'm like, shut. Can we skip ahead? Okay, I actually decided to just go get some water instead of struggling, but I have a book haul. All of these were £17. I got these before my exam because the center was in a pretty affluent area where I know there is a really good charity bookshop, and because it's in an affluent area, they get really good donations in quite good condition. So I knew I was gonna go there to do some damage before the exam started as a way to cool off. So I found two lovely Edith Whartons in the Virago Modern Classics edition. I've never seen these in England. I feel like I only see American YouTubers have these because I don't know why. Although it does say £3.50 net in the UK only. That is such a good price for when was this published originally, this edition? 1983? Wow. Anyways, I also bought this for £3.50. I have The Mother's Recompense and Roman Fever. So this is a couple of short stories, I believe. Elegant, finely wrought stories set in Italy, France, and America. They are powerful portraits of women who live in the world of propriety at the turn of the century. Exciting. Yeah, Edith Wharton does write pretty much stories of the same theme around propriety in society and issues with that, and those who seek to break free from these constraints, or what's the word? Froth at these constraints. That's not the word I wanted, but it's close enough. And the next one I have is The Mother's Recompense. She had left Anne when Anne was a baby of 3, left her with a dreadful pang, a rending of the inmost fibres, and yet a sense of unutterable relief, because to do so was to escape from the oppression of her married life. Kate Clephane lives alone in a second-rate hotel on the French Riviera. Now, nearly 20 years before she eloped with a man, fleeing her husband and home and the rigidity of New York society. Now middle-aged, her years of raffish expatriate living have taken their toll. Then, a telegram arrives from her daughter Anne, inviting her back to their Fifth Avenue mansion and the charmed circle of her old world. But Kate finds post-war New York a changed city of towering skyscrapers. Wow, my out loud reading is quite bad. We must amend this in 2026. Though more liberal, it is no less oppressive, and the joy of being with her daughter is soon threatened by the reappearance of the only man she ever passionately loved. This penetrating and moving study of mother-daughter relations, of sexual mores, jealousy, and exile was first published in 1925. Wow. Crazy woman. I'm excited to read this. This sounds amazing. And then I also got The Electric Kool-Aid Test by Tom Wolfe, where they take a bunch of LSD for the first time in the 60s, and it's like super crazy. I'm actually not sure this is this is not non-fic. I was under the impression before I bought this that it was non-fic, but it seems it is not. I also have The Bonfire of the Vanities by Tom Wolfe on my shelf, but that is like it's massive. It is so big. So I haven't exactly gone into it yet, but I have heard he's an amazing writer, and I'm just really into it. I honestly find books written in the 60s and 70s and 80s, or about that time period in America, so fascinating and interesting and compelling to read. I don't know why. It just seems so distinct and unimaginable to me. I feel like they're so tangible to read about for some reason. I don't know why. I guess it was just a very distinctive time in US history. When we talk about eras, like those were eras. Like I feel like now a lot of time or a lot of decades blend into each other and have more and more similarities as technologies become more common in our daily lives. But the way they were living back then is kind of hard for me to imagine now. Like I don't know, it seems like extremely nostalgic and hard to imagine in our now modern day world, but it's beautiful to read about. I just love reading about it. Not the social and cultural mores so much maybe, but we've definitely progressed, but there's something very fascinating I find about those times. I have An Imaginative Experience by Mary Wesley. To be honest, I got this because the cover drew me in. I feel like it feels very like 90s, 2000s type cover, and it was on the £1 cart, so I got it. And actually the blurb sounds interesting to me as well. A traveller on an intercity train returning to London smells the burn of the brakes as it hisses to a stop in the middle of the countryside. He sees a white-faced woman leap from the train and race to the aid of his sheep stranded on its back, unable to rise in a field. Righting it, she turns and he sees her face is full of tragedy. And not, he thinks, because she pulled the emergency lever and will face retribution. Considering tragedies of his own, he does not intrude, but the image lodges in his mind, a strange but familiar despair, unable, despite itself, to ignore the desperation it recognizes in others. So yeah, I was compelled to read this. I feel like it's an imaginative experience. And I think sometimes picking up these random books is the best way to go about it if you just have an inkling about what the themes may be and that you're drawn to them. I think you should pick it up this way. This is how you discover your taste and discover new books that are not popularly recommended and are not in mainstream circulation. And I feel like those can sometimes be the richest reads and literary experiences you get. So yeah. I also have Significant Others by Armistead Maupin. Wow, what a name. This is a comedic novel. It's apparently it's apparently part of a series. I say apparently like I didn't read this in the store and figure it out then as well. But a holiday in the Redwoods goes uproariously awry when the opposing sexes camp out rather too close to each other for comfort. Among those entangled in the mayhem are Dee Dee Halcyon, reformed debutante, troubled house husband Brian Hawkins, and the irrepressible Michael Mouse Tolliver. So yeah, I guess chaos ensues. That's literally it. I guess, again, it's part of a series, so maybe there's more to know. But I like when series, you can read them, and it doesn't matter if you've read the others. And then this last one, it's a bit thicker. This is A Little Loud, an anthology of prose and poetry for reading aloud to someone you care for. And I just thought that's so sweet. Oh my gosh, Shama Thaney. Wow. Yeah, so it's excerpts from prose, essays, novels, as well as poetry. And I just think that's really sweet. I think that's so sweet. I think that, wow. The concepts people have come up with for books. And then yesterday, I treated myself as well. I went to the Tate Late with a friend, and when they do the Tate Lates, they also do about they did a 20% discount on their store, and I also have the Tate Collective discount, so I got some things, and one of them was quite expensive. I think this is the most I've ever spent on a book, but for me, I guess it was worth it, but I definitely will not. I have no reason to spend this much on a book ever again. So I got some non-fic, Night Walking, A Nocturnal History of London by Matthew Beaumont. This cover is really nice. I think you cannot really tell on camera, but it's got this glowy reflective surface. It's just a captivating history of the city at night and the people, writers, and workers who inhabit the London darkness. And it's got illustrations. Okay, so this is the thing. I need to start reading nonfiction this year because I've started to find actually interesting nonfic that I believe I would want to read and would like reading and be invested and committed to reading instead of just starting and abandoning it about like a couple of chapters in. But I'm not in the habit of reading nonfic, so now that I've bought this, I need to make a concerted effort to actually pick it up and not just get lost in the merry world of fiction that I am used to being in. So there's that. So I picked up one that's both beautiful to look at and combines a couple of my interests. And yeah, I just hope it's good. Verso Publishing. I've never heard of this publishing house. So I do judge books by their publishing house sometimes, actually. I feel like that's actually a pretty good way to go about it, to find books you like or don't like. And then I had this. Oh my god, it's so cute. Clean de Ville. Oh, by the way, I don't speak French, so maybe that was not correct. But I just loved this cover, and I was like, what is this? And it's so nice. It's just paintings and pictures and depictions of eyes in this entire book. This was the expensive one. But to me, I love it. I love it so much. It's so cute. And I think it's a really cute coffee table book to have, and I think that's just really fun. I also do just like eyes. I think eyes are the window to the soul, but I think I also think you can carry and convey so much emotion through your eyes, through eye contact with a person. If you know them well enough, you can have full conversations. There's so much that can be transmitted and transmuted and held through a gaze. And I think there's a lot of power in eyes, so that's why I had to buy it. For me, it was something that just made sense. I mean, if it was an anthology of hands, I don't think I would have been as bothered, even though I know people like they like hands, like the Subway Hands account. But for me, that's just like whatever. That's okay. That's not really my interest. But the eyes never lie, Chico. Anyways, I thought I was gonna kind of make this a vlog, but we are 26 minutes in, so I think we're just gonna sit to the sit down and talk format, and I'm gonna end the video here. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you found anything interesting and what you've been up to, what you've been reading lately. If anyone's wondering, oh, actually, happy Valentine's Day. It's Feb 14th as I'm recording this. I had a really lovely day because it was really nice and sunny. So I walked around quite a lot. I did a lot of cooking, which I love. I love cooking, and I made some new things, new recipes. They tasted delicious. Wow, even more satisfying. And I did some shopping. I treated myself. I went to buy the Chanel Rouge Noir collection. I wanted to get the mascara and the lipstick, but everything was sold out. Can you believe it? It's sold out practically everywhere. I've waitlisted myself, so. But I did try on the lipstick, this darker color on top. It's faded throughout the day, but it faded, like it wore really well throughout the day. It was still quite dark till maybe 2-3 hours ago, like even after I ate my lunch and had a cup of tea. It was kind of still on. Actually, not kind of. It was still on, apart from like, just this like little butthole part that you always get with dark lipsticks. And it only faded when I started chewing on my lips, which I love to do. You can't stop me. And I just topped it up with MAC's Hazy Matte in Be My Bridesmaid for this video, which I also purchased today. So yeah, have a lovely morning, day, evening, night, whenever you're watching this. If you like, share, and subscribe, that would also mean a lot to me. And you can comment too if you want. That would be cool.